We baddies.
Yeah, such a baddie. I am Rita. I don't have any like tag name or anything. Natural goddess for the most part.
I'm Florentino. If you guys are into self-love, healing journeys, and talking about trauma, being self-aware, then this podcast is for you. What got you into podcast?
So I originally was reading a book by Ayana Van Zet. One day my soul just opened up. It's a good read. It had a lot of good intakes. I had a lot of good like journal prompts to think about myself and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I would listen through Audible, and I would be like driving to work or just going about my everyday life while I'm listening to things. And then once I finished the book, I was like, I kind of want more.
Yeah.
Like I enjoyed the content. I enjoyed just the self-reflection and the thinking. And then also there were like affirmations and notes just to think about on your daily lives. So that's when I just searched into the podcast world to keep going. And I ran into, what was the first podcast I listened to? I think it was Chefs and Knives.
And because you were in your culinary journey.
Yeah. It was a really good podcast, and then I just wanted more, and I just went down the rabbit hole of podcasts.
So what made you want to start your own?
And I just really wanted to be part of that community. I want to be able to find my story, express my story, and just go with it and see where it takes me. I'm all for finding your voice, finding your niche, finding your heart, following your heart and stuff like that. And people have asked me, like, I'm a chef, by the way, guys. People ask me, like, what's your favorite thing to cook? Or what's your specialty? I've always had that question ever since I was going to school, talk about things that I've learned and put it in a podcast form. And whoever listens, you listen. If you don't listen, it's more so for me, you know?
Yeah.
How about
Makes sense. I used to be one of those people that could just sit down and read a book. But then I would get a headache. So I'm like, no, that's not for me. So I found podcasts. And I just figured, okay, well, I'm working on myself. So my body at the gym. So let's just work on my head. So at that time, it just felt right. And then why I guess I look into it is because I'm adopted. And there's always that little clearance of like not knowing who you are or thinking you know who you are and then finding out information just kind of like erupts who you think you are, and then like being triggered in certain ways that you never felt like you were triggered before, and recognizing patterns and wanting better, but also for being a voice. And like when I used to look up on YouTube or other like podcasts is like a sense of belonging. You want to be able to relate to other people knowing that they went through the same type of things, and in the end they ended up turning out okay. And podcasts for me, I guess, gave me that type of closure or validation that I necessarily couldn't get through speaking about my experiences to friends or to family, because they have their views and they can't necessarily relate, versus you click onto someone's podcast about being adopted or some of the traumas that they've gone through, and it's like, oh, okay, like there's more people out in this world that understand me and I don't feel so isolated and alone. And this is how they figured out their trauma, and this is how they grew, and not all of it works for me, but I can take pieces of what they've learned and what helped make them grow and apply it to my life. And I was always wanting to do it, so
yeah,
it's kind of cool.
And we just both get it.
Get it. What is a topic that you think you'd want to start off with, or like resonates well with you, where you have enough knowledge or something you want to share about it?
So I did show you like the content.
Yeah.
That I was like considering.
Let's take a look at that.
What I can think of now right now I'm reading The Womb Journal. It's by Queen Afua. I think that's just like the opening of not more so spirituality. It has some in it, but it's also just learning about your womb, you know?
Your womb?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that similar or different to astrology?
Different. Because it's your body. Astrology is stars. But I mean...
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't know, because I didn't know if it was like the same type of energy.
No, it's fine. I was just being smart ass. But, yeah, so I'm only like a chapter or two in. I need to be like reading more. And that's trying to get it together.
What made you want to start or looking into astrology? Is there some personal thing in that, or is it just you're curious? And
the curiosity. Astrology, I remember as a kid, I learned I was a Virgo. Read into it. No, it was my birthstone, I think. I learned about my birthstone. I think my mom gave me like a necklace or some type of jewelry, whatever, and it had the September birthstone.
Which is what? Do you know?
Sapphire.
Sapphire. Pretty.
I love sapphire. And within the casing, I think it was a ring or neck. You know, when it comes into
a little box.
Yeah, the box. The box said, it's over casing. I don't know. The box said what September represented, and I was like 8, 9. Like I was pretty young, and it read like September is wisdom and strength or something like that. I don't remember what it represented, but it kind of like dawned on me. So I was like, oh, I'm meant to be wise. I'm meant to be like this is who I am. Because I'm like, I don't know if it reflected on who I was at that moment, or if it was something I aspired to be for the most part. And like as I grew older, I learned about being a Virgo. It was just like, okay, all these traits of a Virgo, I kind of like connected with. I was like, oh, I think I do that. I find myself doing that. I don't know, but then also, you know, some people don't believe in it, and they be like, it's all a sham, or it's all just like new fake shit or whatever.
I guess I believe in it because I've seen like
patterns,
mine, and then I read Kylie's, and then it's like I can see. Oh, for Taurus is like they're stubborn, but they're very confident in who they are. With Aries, we have, is that the same thing, or is that not it?
Yeah,
spiritual. Oh, okay.
Well, I don't think it's spiritual. I think it has something to do with its energy and like vibrations and stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, I'm still learning about the shit. I mean, y'all got a book? Let me know.
But like Aries are super loving and loyal, but then once you get them upset, or like they feel like a betrayal wound, then they get mad. And where it's like those kind of things, I feel like are spot on. So I get where you're coming from on yours.
Does that what got you into it, or like the first time you looked into? Was it when you had Kylie, or was it sooner than that you looked into?
My parents always like took us to a Chinese restaurant, and then they'd always say like, yeah, and then they'd always say something like, "Oh, you're I think it was a boar or a cock or a rooster, something 1993." And then
the year of your song,
yeah,
Chinese.
And then they were like, "Oh, that's totally you," and I'm like, what you mean? And I never really like looked into it, and people say, oh, well, kind of like the toxic part of it is, oh, well, I'm an Aries. It's like, oh, that's just who we are. And then it's like, but why are we like that? And then when I started to be around more Aries, it's like, oh, that makes more sense. So, but yeah, sorry, I don't mean to take that away from you.
No,
you're just saying I can relate. I understand.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Just like with the learning about it, and then like even as I'm older, learning more about how the moon and
I heard that we have like 3 of them. Like we have a rising sun.
It's based on where you were born, the time you was born, and the date.
So I wonder if you don't know the time that you were born. Like for people like me, is like being adopted is like I can reach out to my birth mom or whatever. Yeah. And ask her, but the chances of her letting me know right now is not gonna be.
It's not even.
But I know
exactly because that's the same thing with me, because I don't know the time. I'll ask my mom, and she knows like the time frame, but she doesn't
area.
know the
Yeah.
exact time. She's like, I know it was in the morning, or it could have been at night. I don't know. When you giving birth, you push something out. Like, you're not looking at what time it is when you have the baby.
Well, I know Kylie's.
Look up Kylie's.
Yeah.
Because you know where she was and what time, so you'll know like what her.
3:27 p.m.
So the moon, sun, and the rising. Yeah, moon, sun, and rising.
Mm-hmm.
The sun is you, like what your original, your Aries. That's your sun.
Mm-hmm.
The moon, it depends on. If I'm not correct, I don't know. Depend. So every full moon is in a stage of the horoscopes. That's something that's on my to-do list. You can call the hospital that you was born at and get the records and get the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Do they still have records of that? That's crazy.
I feel like I've Googled it and they said all hospitals will have the records of like when you was born or whatever. I feel like that's a
government thing.
That's a government thing, but within myself, I don't like talking to people. I don't like calling and waiting and being put on hold. Or
Yeah.
you just look stupid. Like, hey, what time was I born in 1994?
Let me get back to you.
Right? Like, we got people's spleens hanging out, and you want me to look up the time? Like, I don't want to be a bother. But I mean, that's something I want to know. So that should be something I should look into in learning about or whatever.
Yeah, but I also think like you thinking that you're bothering them in a way too. Mm-hmm. I get it, but I feel like that's a trauma response.
Yeah,
because that's a piece of information that's going to help you understand yourself.
Yeah,
but I also feel like sometimes we put too much into what we are, like on paper, like astrology, horoscopes, chakras, and all of that.
And it's like a excuse because, I just do this because I'm an Aries, or I just do this because my chakra's off. But I mean, it's still a learning thing. Like, if you're actually connected with that, with the if you're actually connected within it, and like, because I do learn about that's something else I'm learning about is crystals and chakras and meditation and stuff like that. And it's like getting out of my head and into my into my body, into my spirit. Yeah.
And that's what's tricky too, is like when you start your journey and you go through different channels, and like with you helping me do the yoga and like making me interested in that and then it's like I was starting to learn about like stored trauma and then chakras again. And it's like for every little journey that you put yourself in, then you're learning something new. Mm-hmm. But then part of me is like, okay, I know I'm an Aries. I know like parts of who I am because it's on paper and that's whatever. Mm-hmm. But then there's other contrasting things where it's like, then I look at storage blocks on like chakra, like trauma, how it's like stored in different places, like your pelvis or your head or even your heart. And it's like, then it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
But then it's like, in a way, all of it all connects. So it's kind of interesting.
And I had that conversation with a friend. It dawned on me the collateral beauty of life. Like, it's, you have trauma, you have success, you have failure, you have death, beauty, life, like, and it's all tied into one, and it's beautiful, basically.
And like, it's kind of interesting too.
You
like,
can't just have you can't just have a life with everything going your way, everything's good, you're a perfect person, and you haven't been anything, and it's all unicorns, butterscotch, and mistletoes. I don't know. Like,
but I also think it's kind of interesting too, because it's like, then we look back at our past, and like with my parents, they didn't have that type of information that we have, like that's readily available, or all of that. And then now it's like me realizing, like with Kylie, is like she's gonna have a ton more information about who she is, what she can do. Her potential is gonna be 10 times better, but also have its own setbacks too. But it's like, as we get older or like generations progress, the amount of information they're going to have is so much different from the lack of information decades before. And I guess that can be a good thing and a bad thing, because then you're either more self-aware, which means you could be more critical of yourself, or you could be super successful. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of interesting too, because our lives are so different from each generation.
Mm-hmm. That's true. And with coming with our parents, it's just they're stuck in their ways. But at the same time, if you think about it, like, how old were they when they had you, or when they were with you, and how old are you now? Well, I don't know, how old were your parents?
And just even the different times.
How old were your parents when
my parents back home were, I think, 18, 19. Mm-hmm. Which is funny, because that's when I had Kylie.
Yeah, so it's just, think about, you could put yourself in their shoes and be like, the mind that you have now, what you know now, and if you was in their shoes, mm-hmm. based on what the mind they had then, and what they're going through, how would they proceed it or whatever. Yeah.
Religion back then took a lot of people, like how you said, people were kind of stuck in their own ways. Mm-hmm. And now it's like, in this generation, people are still religious. I'm not taking that part away from them, but they're a little bit more open to other things, like people being gay, people being trans, and there's a little bit more information out there where it's just not like, this is haram, or this is a sin, this is bad, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's more open talks and conversations with it. Because I know back in Romania with my mom, it was considered like a huge thing if you have a child out of wedlock. Mm-hmm. So I understand why she could have put me up for adoption. That could be a big reason for it. And I also understand my parents here and how they've gone their own trials and tribulations. Mm-hmm. And then to having like 3 kids the same age, and mm-hmm. that, whatever that brings. Mm-hmm. So like, I get it, but everyone's stories are different. Mm-hmm. But it has a lot to do with how you're raised and who you are because mm-hmm. of it. Mm-hmm. Like, I know Kylie's an only child, so she gets my one-on-one attention on top of her dad's attention for one-on-one. Mm-hmm. But then it's like, her childhood is so different from my childhood, because she didn't have to share movie nights or money or parents' attention, mm-hmm. or, you know, she can make friends a lot more easier because the friends don't know the other siblings, or, mm-hmm. you know. So it's just like, all of our lives are so different. But in the end, we're all connected because we can relate. Yeah. I feel like the more information we have, I can't say it's easier, but knowledge is power.
Definitely. Definitely. You learn that. Keep talking. This is me in the morning.
No, that's good.
I think this one was about me talking about introverts and women introverts. Like, there's always, like, there's the 9 to 5, or you're working with customer service, or you're working with people or whatever. But then it's also, there's not enough options out there for introverts. Or it's more so, you have to find your voice, learn how to step out your comfort zone, and put yourself out there, basically.
Yeah, because I kind of feel like as women, we're expected to be like loud, proud, and know who we are.
Yes.
And it's like, there's not a lot of room for extroverts. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah.
I never heard anyone say like, hey, I'm an extrovert, I need to be an introvert. Or like, I need to learn how to be more quiet with myself. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard a lot of podcasts, but I've heard introverts needing to be more extroverted.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So I guess it's more so trying to figure out why that is in this world, or why do we have to...
Why do we have to be loud and proud?
I mean, you can be proud, but do you have to be... I mean, stand in your light, but then honestly, that's like the affirmation or the positivity of it is standing in your light or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Doing what works for you in a way.
Yeah, and if it's just like, make it okay that what works for you, you're not the center of attention. You're just doing what makes you happy, you know?
Yeah, because there's some people that can like be loud and kind of in a way obnoxious and like still say the same things, but they're not able to connect with people like on a one-on-one, versus introverts may not be able to go into a room and take all of the attention or take charge of the audience, but they can relate to you one-on-one. So it's like, it really depends on what you're looking for as a person. Do you want to relate to a huge audience, or do you want to relate to one-on-one and because you can still make the same type of impacts on people, but I feel like you're right, where everyone just thinks that you have to be loud and proud and like do it one certain way versus appreciating your gift, because I feel like empathy is something that people have or you don't have. I mean, I guess you could work on it, but if you already have that gift and you can relate to people one-on-one, yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see what else. Let's see. I don't know what I was
I
talking.
think it's good though.
I gotta like label it.
I think it's good though, because in a way you're getting yourself out there and you're listening to your voice.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. I feel like I'm just
Getting into
turn it
like
on
a routine
and
of
I
it.
talk.
Yeah.
And I just see what comes out, and in the future I'll just like piece it together and try to like find.
Yeah. But I'm
what
proud
I'm
of
gonna do
you,
with it for
and I
going
feel
in.
like we have to be proud of ourselves for the small little
things.
steps versus holding ourselves back, or kind of like with the productivity. I don't know how to say productivity.
Productivity.
But small little steps matter, and I'm proud of you for that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. But I'm proud of both of us too, because we're doing it. We talked about it and we're doing it.
Yeah, we're trying to stay committed to it. Just keep doing it and try to make it a thing.
But I feel like anything in life, you can start something and then you stop, or life gets in the way. And you recognize that pattern, and you're not going to ever be perfect unless you just gifted, I guess. But
it just comes easy to you. But I mean, yeah, and that's the
people
make it okay.
structured.
Like if we started and then we stop and then we come back, and then just
Yeah.
you had things where a lot of things is going on in your life, so you had to put that thing on hold and then come back to it when you're in a different mind state.
I feel like just acknowledging that you're doing it and then you come back is still powerful in a way, because you're still moving forward. You're not staying in the same spot. But then you're also, for me, is like I beat myself up, and now I'm just starting to learn. It's like, it's okay. Like you can stop, you can start again, and you're just not being stagnant and not doing anything.
I think for me, I feel like I have to get over the fact of it's not gonna happen in a day. It's not gonna be perfect in a day. And I've learned that with listening to different podcasts. Just start with something and grow from it. But then, and it's take your time. It's your own pace or whatever. But then I look back and it's already month 10. The year's almost over.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, I'm losing time. I'm gonna be this age and and you just get in your head of I need to be more productive. I need to be more disciplined within myself so I can get to what I want to do by the age of 30 or by the age of this or by the age of 45.
Yeah, I feel like that's the age that we're in too, because it's like when we're kids, we don't necessarily think about the time clock of our lives. And then now it's like we're at to the point where we're almost 30. And it's like we're starting to kind of nest down into what we want for our lives. And what we build now is going to reflect what we're going to have in the next 10, 20, or even 30 years. And it's a blessing, but it's also a curse, because this is the time where it's like we're super critical on ourselves. But we're not giving ourselves, well, we should give ourselves more credit, because it's like we're doing things, like probably not. I feel like we are so like enamored with the whole thing of being perfect timing, perfect schedule, perfect alignment, space, and all of that. And it's like there's such beauty in not having everything go as planned. And what we thought was going to take us 2 years, or like where we'd be in 2 years versus like the 4 that it actually took, is like I feel like people can relate to that, because life is not perfect. And the more we try to hold our lives are perfect and like constantly do something, it's like then we're not showing up the way we could, versus if we take that break or deal with whatever we need to on the side and come back. So it's like, in a way, it's like perfectly unperfect. So
and that's true. And that goes back to
appreciating the small little steps that
you
we
saying
take.
Like us as kids, they ask, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? Or you have all the time. Don't worry about that now. Think about when you're a kid or whatever. You get so used into that just being a kid, and I don't really have to think about it right now or whatever. But then you honestly don't focus on what you like to do. Like, say you go to the park and you go play in the sand, or you want to swing on the monkey bars. Mm-hmm. You didn't really think about how much that you enjoyed that until you're older, and you go back and be like, what did I do as a kid that I really jumped? I really liked being on the monkey bars over being in the sand. So it's like, I want to be a gymnast, you know, but you don't. But some people, I know, you really have to be able to like go back there to look at that, because you're not really, as a kid, you're not thinking about that. As you're jumping, swinging on the bars or whatever, you're not, oh, I can do this for some money, or I can do this as a profession.
But it's crazy too, because at that time we're not thinking about our careers, we're not thinking about what we want to do, kind of like what you said. But then it's like our parents are already thinking about it for us, and like they're trying to push us in one direction, all while we're later in life, you want to be true to yourself, and you're like, oh, was I doing that for me? Was I doing it for my parents?
Yeah.
It's like, now you're adults somewhat, and it's like you have to figure out, was that me? Was that my parents? Why am I doing it? Do I enjoy it?
Yeah.
Or am I doing it because I think I have to do it?
Exactly.
And I think that's the other battle of it
too.
Do
you have that joy back from when you was a kid, nonchalantly doing it, enjoying it? Or is it because it's something you have to do to make money, or have to do because...
Or even culturally too. It's like, am I doing it because I was told to do it and I would be accepted if I did it this way? Or like even people that have like full ride scholarships, like football examples, like, oh, I used to love football, but now I don't like football because it's now become my career. And all this whole time I could like knitting or something, or sewing, but that's not culturally acceptable for like a man per se. No, that does not relate to me whatsoever.
Like a man that's like,
because I'm not a man, but
6'8",
like, it's just
be like, what are you doing working behind a computer when you could be throwing somebody's football or something like that? You know?
Yeah.
That's like, it's a thing.
All finding you.
And that goes into the perfection of it all, of like, you feel like you were so used to as a child or as a young adult of like, oh, I got all the time in the world or whatever. And then we're hitting older. I'm like, okay, we was a young adult, now we're stepping to an adult. We thought we had all the time, but it's like, work on something, do something.
Yeah, the expectations of having it figured out by this time.
And the whole time, I wasn't even thinking about it. Yeah. Now it's just like, okay, well, now let's do something.
But then it's also, too, realizing that, like, when our parents had us, and, like, we thought our parents had their shit together. Like, at least I did. I was like, wow, my mom's a nurse. She knows what she's talking about. She's so grounded. And now I'm an adult. I'm like, Mom, did you really know what you were doing? Or what was going on? She's like, I had no idea. I was trying to do the best that I can. I didn't know shit. And, like, that's where I'm at right now. So
I'm just going with it for the most part.
Just enjoying, I guess, the process of it, but letting go of the expectation to have our stuff figured out by a certain age, I feel like is, I don't know.
And that's
the beauty of it all.
Get back to the beauty of it, because like I said, I've listened to podcasts, and some podcast people that I listen to, they're like late 40s doing it, and they've been doing it for 10 plus years or something like that. So I mean, that's, and like they've said, like, oh, this is our 100th episode, or we've been doing this for so many years. Remember our first podcast, and it was such a hot mess, but now
that could be us.
We got so many. Yeah, it's like we got so many viewers now, and this content can help so many people and stuff like that. And that's just. And they say, like, the best advice is just to do it. Just start. Don't worry about it. Just start and clean it up as you go, or whatever. And that's something you have to, I feel like, tell yourself constantly, and not just be like, I'm self-conscious about this, I don't want to post it. I'm self-conscious about what I said or how I looked or whatever. I don't want to get trolled, so I'm not going to post it. I'm not going to put myself out there. And that goes into being the introvert of you fighting within yourself, to step out into that light or whatever.
But it's interesting because things that you don't think that you're motivating people with. So, like, for an example with you, is like, I never really thought about yoga, but then when you invited me into the world, and like, you're still being yourself, but you were vulnerable enough with me to share that experience with you. It's like, I thought that was really awesome. Like, when we were doing our yoga, when we were wrapping up, she was saying something about like being grateful and all that. I was like, my dead ass was fucking crying.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
it was like emotional because it was like, this is the first time in my life where I'm focusing on me, you know, like, and you being my best friend is like, you're helping me feel good about myself while you're doing it for yourself. And if that's not alignment, I don't know what is.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
No, I didn't even think much of that. More so because I really love yoga and I loved what it did for me and what it's continued to do for me, even when I feel overwhelmed within myself and in my head or whatever. I just like to I just need to relax and take a moment away or whatever. And I'm all pro telling my friends or people that care about me, like, just come to yoga, just do yoga or do something.
But like,
do a stretch, start
you
something.
didn't have that. You didn't bring me into that class to motivate me or for me to look up to you. But it's just like me watching you do your own thing made me admire you 10 times more. I mean, I admire you regardless, but like, it just, like, you don't know who you're motivating by doing yourself or like bringing them in or even talking about it. We could be motivating people right now to start a podcast that they didn't feel like they could do. So it's like, we just putting our own experiences out into the world and having other people relate to them, even though we don't think that we're being relatable or trying to be relatable, has its own power in it.
Yeah, it just happens nonchalant. And that goes into back when I was going to the gym like regularly, and I would make a post on Snapchat about me. I'm like, okay, I'm doing it. I'm just motivating myself. Like, I'm going strong. 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in.
That's
it's my
nice
third month or
feeling.
whatever. So I'm just like steady making posts. And then when I go and visit my family, like one of my family friend's sister, she was like, oh, that's Rita. She's a chef and she goes to the gym. She does this. She does that. She's just naming things that I posted. And I'm just like, damn, you noticed?
Yeah.
That pumped me up a little bit. I'm like, oh, okay, well. Yeah. And she's like, I love bragging about you. It's nice more so that other people see it because you're so hard on yourself and you're just like, damn, I ain't go to the gym today. Like, bitch, you went to the gym for 4 months straight, but you ain't go today, and you're beating yourself up about it. Like, I guess, and that's just the drive to have. Like, you want to keep that. Like, it keeps you going. But that goes into food too, because it's like, your food is never perfect, and you'll get feedback saying, oh, this was delicious or whatever, and it's more so like, is it though? Like, I know I could have did better, but it was good for you. I'm happy you enjoyed it, but I know I could have did better with it, you know.
Yeah, I relate to that with photography. People are like, oh, that was such a great picture, and I'm like, really? Was it though? But then it's like, I put my work out in front of other photographers, and then you hear that feedback too, and it's a humbling experience, because it's like, damn, maybe I shouldn't be so hard on myself. So yeah, I get that.
Definitely.
And that's why I feel like over the years I used to be kind of introverted. I didn't want to put my experiences out there because people have their negative views. But it's like, you have to, in a way, because I feel like there's more positive than there is negative. But
yeah, I really like this. I want to get it down to it, and we just, I don't know, it motivates us to.
That's why I like, it's just like, I had our chairs facing towards each other. So we're talking to each other. And eventually, if we want, we can talk over here. But at the same time, I kind of like this because it's more real. And people can see our connection because we're talking. And they're just kind of like, if you're like on like talk show hosts, you know, like they have that one-on-one. And then people are in the audience just listening.
Kind of the vibe you want.
Yeah, because I kind of like it. It's us connecting. And then whoever is on the other side of the camera can relate or whatever, listen to whatever they relate to and take the good and bad and whatever.
That's understandable though too, and honestly I feel like that's more what's the name, because you're not looking into the camera talking to people. It feels more natural. Yeah. And it's just we'll have just a record our conversations or whatever.
But I like it too because it's us being vulnerable. And through our own vulnerability with ourselves is we're establishing trust with an audience too. You know, I feel like if I were to do it alone right now, I mean, I guess I could get used to it, and that's the power of practice and whatever. But then I'd kind of be in my own head. But with you, I know I can be myself. You don't judge me, and you allow that vulnerability in me to be there. So it just seems natural, and
That's,
love.
and I think I was kind of on the same page with that, because when I was doing the practicing, like the practice rounds myself at home, I still want to be able to do that, because I know there's people I listen to that just be like, I'm in a room by myself talking to y'all. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just talking to myself, honestly. And I love that, because like I talk to myself, I journal, or I'm just in my head thinking about some shit, and then randomly, like I was at work cleaning the stove or whatever, reclosing, and I announced, I was like, did y'all know they put PB&J Otters and Big Bear in the Big Blue House on Disney Plus? No one fucking cared, but it just came in my head, and I said it out loud. I randomly say things out loud that no one cares about. But back to me saying it by myself, if I have it on, the mic on, and I'm just talking, there's a lot of long pauses, there's a lot of me in my head. I don't really know what to think. I don't know what to say. And I'm like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to edit this, because it's a lot of quietness and I'm not really saying much. I'm just talking in circles.
But at the same time,
it's a good thing to have somebody there,
yeah,
to bounce off back and forth, or we just, yeah.
And I feel like some pauses are okay, because it's like you reflecting and the audience can feel that.
Mm-hmm.
But I agree, is like when we are here, we're present, and I can understand when there's a pause, and then I can ask another question, or we can just enjoy the pause and reflect, or we can end it. So it's like, okay. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, not on my car. I just have
Let me
a phone charger. I would have one at home.
I'm glad this worked, because I literally was up at 3 a.m. trying to figure this shit out. Because it was literally just one mic. So I'm like, we're not going to pass a mic, are we? Can you imagine taking that off the thing and just passing it every time we wanted to talk? That'd be
Live
weird.
on the news. Give me your insights,